so as you said, my name's Hobey Tam. A lot of you know me, but for those who don't, on the video, it's a clean slate. So, for those of you in the room, can anyone tell me what this symbol means?
Swastika.
Swastika, what does it mean though? When you see a swastika, what does it call to mind? Nazis. Mustaches. Out of band. Germany. Is it good or bad? Is it a bad symbol?
Symbol of prosperity for me.
Yeah.
There you go. So swastika has actually been used for millennia upon millennia to actually mean as a good symbol. So swastika actually is a Sanskrit derivative. Su meaning good, asti meaning it is. So swastika literally means it is good. But because of the Western world, so this is where we see the division in the room, because so there's part of the room that comes from a different part of the world, they view it differently. And us from the Western world actually view this symbol as a symbol of oppression and evil because of the Third Reich and the rise of Nazism. But there's a little bit more obscure lesson in perception. Does anyone know who this man is?
Supposed to be Banksy.
He's supposed to be Banksy. What does he look like in the picture though? For those of you who don't know Banksy.
Mechanic.
Looks like a mechanic. But he's actually an infamous, or claimed to be an infamous, notorious graffiti artist with prolific art around the world. If you have the Banksy on the side of your building, it actually goes up by several €100,000. But what this teaches us is that the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's actually the illusion of knowledge in terms of perceiving things. That ignorance is at least bliss, but we all know that the worst group member to have is the guy who thinks he can take on a workload, not the guy who's too stupid to take on the workload. So today, I want to kind of give you a lesson in perception. In fact, I want to teach you the concepts of art and teach you that not all art majors are crazy. They're actually pretty insightful people. And if you take these concepts of art and how we perceive beauty and really break down and learn how to use context to break down scenarios and situations, we can actually apply this to real life, and you can actually grow your networks. You can foster international business. You can progress society forward as well as civilization, as well as beautify your life and grow your own network and succeed eventually. So, without further ado, since we already talked about Banksy, these are some of his most popular pieces. And because we come from the Western world, we can appreciate the context of some of the social commentary that's going on right here. However, if I show you something a little bit more obscure outside of the US, not a social commentary on something that we've experienced in our culture, can anyone tell me where this painting is and what significance it bears?
On the West Bank, isn't it?
It is on the West Bank, on the West Gaza Strip, right where the Palestinians are making, and Israelis have constant conflict. And so Banksy actually went up straight to this wall and spray painted this little girl floating away with balloons. And this is a prolific art piece. So prolific, it's pretty much his version of the Mona Lisa. Now, can anyone tell me, so you're taught from when you're a little child that the Mona Lisa, it is the most beautiful painting ever. But has anyone actually seen the Mona Lisa or actually know why it's such a prolific and important piece of art? Can anyone tell me?
I know why, or one reason, the texturing that he uses if you actually look at it in person.
Exactly. He redefined the way in technically creating art. He redefined it. Can anyone else tell me why the Mona Lisa is so important? Have you guys ever seen it in the Louvre? It's about this big. It's it's very anticlimactic when you see it. Yeah. So like everything about this flies in the face of traditional art at that period. It was revolutionary. The way he did form shading, the way, just the expression or how Mona Lisa was perceived and portrayed was completely different. And also there are claims that this is actually Leonardo da Vinci's self-portrait. You don't know. The person actually pictured here is up to question. However, at the time this was painted, it was just as controversial and revolutionary as, well, Banksy's rendition of the Mona Lisa. So, again, I would like to claim that art is a simple freeze frame of a set of ideas or ideals or perceived truths at some point in time. And the quality of art is dependent on not only the artist's ability to compel us to think, but our own ability to perceive and break down the context and really read in between the lines. Therefore, we must define a genius as one who not only excels as an artist, but also one that is an adept observer. And so we will be taking these parallels and drawing them to how we can apply these parallels, this concept, how we can break down pieces and really appreciate the beauty no matter what we see in life. So this is my model of how a person perceives. So first you have what we see. The person in front of you, if you look to the person next to you, you see somebody, you see something. However, they cast a shadow of perception, a shadow that long extends past what's visible. And so what's going on is you have some type of sensory input. So this is my model of how we perceive things. You have some type of sensory input, and it goes in and it goes through your primal instinct, your inner brain. It's what nature has given us. This is where like subconscious stereotyping and what nature has given us. That's what is going on here with the initial sensory input. However, because we developed a higher brain, we also have subconscious judgment, higher evaluation, which results in higher decision making, which then ultimately causes us to make an action. And that action provides feedback, and it gives us another sensory input. And with enough feedback, we actually gain what's called experience. That's why when you're a little kid, you do a lot of stupid stuff. When you're an adult, you do less stupid stuff. Why? Because you have experience affecting your decision matrix here. And as you increase experience, you increase the speed and quality of decision making, which then in turn develops your intuition and what we would refer to as second nature. And so by learning how by increasing your experiences, by exposing yourself to more experiences, you can develop your speed and quality of decision making. And by incorporating other cultures, by watching other people, you can then learn about their experiences and then take advantage of their decision making and learn how they decision make. And then, you utterly control the game, the situation. You get into game theory and prisoner's dilemma. If you can learn how people act, feel, and think, you can control anything, any situation in any game. So one of my favorite quotes here is, if you know your enemy and yourself, you fear not the result of 100 battles. Sun Tzu, Art of War. So this tactic can be used for good and bad. And first I'll begin with the bad scenario. So when Justin Bieber and Hannah Montana outgrew their target market customer segments, what they do? They rebranded themselves, possibly in the worst possible way. But what did they do? They dissected how society acted. They knew how you would act if they did something completely horrendous like this. You would talk about them, and they would still put out music, and you would still hit them up on YouTube and watch the music videos. At one point in time, Miley Cyrus was trending 100,000 tweets per minute. You might say, oh, they degraded their character, whatever. You know what? They're guarantee you're going to forget about that in 3 to 5 years. And you know what? They'll still be famous, and they'll still be grossing more than you, and you'll still be sitting in lab wondering why you make nothing, and they make hundreds of millions of dollars. But this technique can also be used for good. How did Julius Caesar carpe diem? The man was born on 100 BC, stabbed to death on the Ides of March 44 BC. Why? Because he got so awesome that the only way to stop him was to stab him in the back. Not once, not twice, but 23 times. But how was he able to do this? Was he a military genius? Did he have some gene that was just like, oh, I'm just going to be awesome, I'm just going to go and take over people? No. He was flawless in dissecting cultures, and you read The Conquest of Gaul, he was flawless in dissecting cultures and learning his enemy and being able to use the war of attrition that the Romans used. Every political move he made, he knew exactly what his enemy was going to do, and he pitted the enemies. He was one of those guys when you play chess with, he's 7 moves ahead. He's already checkmated you once you've moved the pawn. That's how Julius Caesar seized the day. So, Understanding culture hinges on your ability to perceive. If you want to become a key player, if you want to become successful, you must be able to perceive situations. Whether or not a specific behavior is right or wrong is beside the question. You don't care about that. You want to know why a specific individual from a culture made that decision. And once you know why, you learn how they think. You can add that part into your decision matrix. You can and once you gain more experience with this and you practice it, you develop your intuition and second nature. And you can assimilate into that culture. And by assimilating into different cultures, you can function in different cultures. You're like a USB adapter for any type of device. So you can access more cultures. You can access more revenue. You can access more network. This increases opportunity and success rate. So this skill is invaluable. Being able to sync with different cultures is imperative for streamlining processes, networking, and cooperation for common goals. This gets into this idea of intercultural communications, being able to transcend cultures. Now when I talk about cultures, yes, there's a difference between American culture, Japanese culture, Chinese culture, but I'm also talking about horizontally integrating cultures. So when you're talking about within the American culture, like if I went to a math conference, I wouldn't understand what anybody was saying. Like if I said, oh yeah, the TKR receptor goes with the FAC receptor, and then it translocates through the nucleus with gene transcription through the Krebs, factor 2. Does anybody from the non-science background, non-biology background actually understand that? No. But they still can speak English. They're two separate cultures. So like when you talk from, like when you deal with customer bases, to your raw suppliers, to your channels of different networkings, you have to speak differently. You wouldn't talk the same to a venture capitalist as you would to your principal investigator. Part of two different cultures. And by understanding and looking at the discourse in between these two, you must be able to assimilate into both. So pretty much business model development relies on how well you know the nature of your business you are entering. So consider an example that we all have to deal with. There's you, and there's your job. It's a lot closer on the slide than it is in real life. And you want to get to the job, right? Everyone wants to make some money. However, no one in real life ever gets a job like this. No one, not one person. When's the last time where you actually went to a career fair, you handed out your resume, and actually got interviews, and then got a full-time position, a full ride offer with cash bonus? The best way to get it is to know your life experiences, know the culture you come from, know your resume, and tailor that resume to what the company wants. You have to understand the culture of the company. All the shadow that's casted behind the company. And then you have to understand the access channel. Make sure you're speaking not only literally the right language, but the right discourse. And look at your channels and make sure you optimize each one. Because if some of these are missing, this arrow gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the most important thing, be sure that your culture, how you portray your culture that you come from, is compatible in what they want in the company culture. That's how you get the job. Now, let's look at a specific example of how someone who has successfully transcended cultures. Chef Gordon Ramsay. He has kitchens all over the globe, but he's traditionally coached as a French culinary cook. So how can he penetrate Japanese, Thai, and Chinese markets? So he's successfully transcended these cultures by learning their taste buds. What does the customer base actually want? He does pilot studies, he does his research, and he makes sure that his business is compatible with the culture he's trying to invade. That is not true of some other companies, like Walmart, where they have just pretty much a hammer in their toolbox, and they try to hit it in every single culture. So they had it back out of Germany, they had it back out of China, they had it back out of Africa, despite their huge investments in these areas. Why? Because the cultures didn't match. Some MBA looked at an Excel sheet and said, yeah, we can get increased revenue from that, we can compete with these competitors, but it's not just an Excel spreadsheet, it's a culture. There has to be a combination of culture. And a lot of these mergers and acquisitions that fail are due to non-compatible cultures or cultural barriers. People didn't put in the wrench time to actually look at the culture. And a lot of us are guilty of this on an individual basis. You don't say hi to a kid just because he's kind of weird. Or you just don't hang out with a certain kid because he's not part of your clique. So you inadvertently also do this in your life. And wouldn't it be a beautiful picture if we could all just get over that? It's all cultural barriers. I used to think that poor countries were poor because of some technological barrier. But now that I've traveled more, especially the southeastern part of China, Central America, as well as now Africa, it's all cultural barriers. And that the cultures don't mesh. And that's why we have a lot of problems within the world. It's all cultural barriers. And getting back to the perception of art, wouldn't it be beautiful if we could just get over all our differences, learn why we do things, and just not accept each other as right, categorically just accept each other, but to at least respect each other and respect our differences and just leave it at that. So because I'm not really wise or anything of name yet, I'm going to actually end on a quote who's someone who's actually notable, the Dalai Lama. So when the Dalai Lama was asked what surprised you most about humanity, he said man himself, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health, and that he's so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present, the result being that he never really lives in the future or the present, and he lives as if he's never going to die, and then he dies having never really lived. So with that, I think